Hey, everybody. Paul with Jesus Loves Addicts. Welcome back to part 2 of Kristy Bell's story. And what a story it is. I am always blown away by everybody that comes in here and sits and talks to us and shares the details of their story. But some of them just really grab you, and this is one of those. And if you missed part 1, please go back and check that out so that you'll be up to speed as Kristy Bell takes us through the rest of her journey to recovery. So stay tuned and buckle up.
I had all the drug tests figured out. I flew through that thing with flying colors, graduated, had the certificate, did all the counseling sessions. He was proud of me. Everybody was proud of me. We were going to be okay. I did it. She did it. Yay. We were going to be okay. That was in 2019. By 2020, the addiction's still spiraling. I've overdosed in my bathroom floor while he was at the store with the kids at Walmart, and him and the kids came home, couldn't get in the door, couldn't find me. He kicked the door in, and him and my children had to see me overdosed on the bathroom floor.
Let's be honest about recovery.
The rewards, the challenges.
Let's talk about our failures.
We are flawed people, after all.
Let's challenge the stigmas that weigh us down.
Because while most of us are looked at,
few of us are seen.
Let's talk about addiction.
And how Christ overcomes our weaknesses.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
We are loved.
We are
because
loved.
We are loved.
I didn't want to get found out, and I was nodding out. And I was just having to, I'm so tired. I worked so hard cleaning houses. And then I could tell he was starting to get a little suspicious of stuff because I was too tired. And my kids were Briley would be brushing my hair, and I would start, and she's like, Mama, wake up. And then he'd kind of look at me, and I could see eyes and wheels turning. So I was like, I got to do something. She said, well, just won't you mix it with meth and just speedball? And I never even knew what speedball was at that point.
I sure hope you don't talk to this person.
No, she is in prison for murder.
Oh, okay.
She's been in prison because she shot up someone and left him for dead at a hotel. And so she is serving a life sentence for murder. But so I'm hanging out with this girl, and Keith knew her because we knew her when she was sober, her and her husband. But when he found out that they had divorced because she was on drugs, he forbid me to have any contact with her. Well, of course, she's the one that's got all the ins and outs. I'm going to hang out with her, you know, and I did. But she, anyway, she said, do meth and, heroin together. I said, okay. And I did and loved it. That was like my new best friend. I loved it because now I have energy to do all the things I need to, and I'm not nodding out. So again, I'm not going to be found out. But then there's more money. So then she said, and my dad was like, I just sent you money. And he was starting to I'm sending you money, And it was to the point he was ready to call Keith and be like, what are you doing? Why are you not helping? And I knew I couldn't have the two of them talk about it. So she was like, well, you could start driving. She said, you could start driving like the drug dealers and transporting, and that could be your means and ways to get your drugs for free.
God, I am feeling exhausted hearing
I'm
this.
So sorry.
No. I mean, I'm feeling exhausted hearing this, that I'm thinking you must be absolutely wiped. And I'm not just talking about chemically. I'm talking about emotionally. You must just be absolutely drained.
So drained. But it was like, now at this point, this is when it was, I don't love this anymore, but I don't want to be sick mentality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't want to be sick. So I was driving. So I began driving, and it was like a big ring, drug ring that was going on in West Mobile, and I was driving for the people. I'm driving. I'm taking them from New Orleans to Mississippi. We're going everywhere. We're hitting all the areas during the day because they knew my kids get out of school at this time. I got to be home with my kids. So again, trying to be the best mom I could be. So I'm going to drive you, but I'm going to take the kids through the carpool. I can come get you and drive you. And I'm still pretending, wearing scrubs now, by the way, pretending I've lost the cleaning job from shooting up in people's houses and stealing people's pain pills and stuff. I'll throw that out there. But I'm wearing scrubs every day because he's got to think that I'm still going to work.
Right.
And the kids have to think that because I'll be gone all day. Where else am I going to be? So I'm driving people, these certain people in this drug ring all over to pick up the drugs. And it was spiraling. My addiction was spiraling very quickly. And then fentanyl came on the scene. They weren't selling the heroin anymore. So if you want, you're driving us and you're getting your drugs for free. So now, but it's good because I'm not having to ask Keith for money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he thinks I'm still cleaning houses because I was making cash and making drugs. So now I'm cleaning houses. Here's money. I'm not asking Dad for anything else. So I've got them off the radar. So now everything's getting better is what I was telling myself.
Yeah.
Still taking care of the kids and doing all the things that I'm supposed to do. And I had learned to do it myself at this point. So I didn't need her to help me anymore so I can take it home, do it at home. Because for a while I would have to like leave and run over to her because I didn't know how to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I ended up, but she had never told me there was that you could miss, if we're allowed to even say that. I didn't know that was a thing, and I ended up getting a spot on my hand at one point in 2017, an abscess. And I didn't know what it was, and I'm calling her because I had just started doing it myself really good, but I wasn't good, obviously. But clearly. I'm calling her, and I'm sending her pictures, and I'm like, what is this? And she's like, oh, you just need to put alternate cold and hot compresses. That's what she's telling me to do. And it kept getting bigger and bigger. And I'm like, something's wrong. And finally it started getting so big and it was hurting. And I was like, what is happening? And I was like, oh my gosh. So I ended up, one morning I woke up and my arm was huge. It was from here to here, had just doubled in size. I couldn't hold it up. I couldn't hold it down. It was excruciating. And I was like, I've got to drive myself to the hospital. So I took the kids to school, and he knew that night that I was hurting, and he was like, what's going on? And I said, well, again, such a liar, such a manipulator. I told him that I was outside playing with our baby girl, and we had this like rabid cat that lived. I know it's bad. This cat that we lived behind a strip mall. And so this cat was like, would eat out of dumpsters and come in people's yards, and you could tell it had rabies, and it was just a terrible cat. And he would see it in the yard and chase it off. I said, that cat come up and tried to get at Briley, and I grabbed it, and it latched on my hand. And I went to shake it off, and it wouldn't get off. I said, I think that cat has something in it. Look at my arm. And he was like, we're getting the kids to school, and we're going, it's not funny, but this is how
that is the insanity, the lengths we will go.
Well, let me tell you how insane it was that the hospital bought it hook, line, and sinker because they gave me like the anti-rabies shots, like all the things.
Oh my goodness. You went through a series of that's 7 days of shots in your stomach, right?
I was in the hospital for 12 days, yes.
I mean, my goodness, you would allow that to happen. So
I'm at the hospital. When I went to the hospital that day, my arm was so bad, and I had spiked a high fever. They're like, we got to get her back there. Her body's going septic. I had never heard that word before, didn't know what that meant, but I knew there was a lot of people running around me panicking, and they're like, we got to get her back there. And I'm like, what does that mean? I thought I was going to go get a shot of something, antibiotic, something, and be on my way. They're like rushing me around. We got to get her into surgery. They're talking surgery. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. So I call him, and they're like, what happened to you? And I come up, tell them this whole cat story because at that point I didn't have track marks and all of that because I had just started shooting myself up. The other girl had been doing it for me and was good at it. So there weren't any markers. You couldn't tell that I was an IV drug user. Okay. So they get me back there. I'm telling them this cat story, and they bought it and believed it. And I was in the hospital, 2 surgeries. They had to go in and clean out all of my fingers up to here in my arm. Oof. Didn't get it the first time, so they had to fly in a surgeon to come and repeat it the second time. I had like 6 foot, literally, I think they said 4 to 6 feet of gauze here up to my arm that they had to remove. The pain was excruciating. You thought this would have been enough. I almost lost my life, almost lost my arm. But worth my sweet mom, let me tell you about sweet Rhonda. I literally bought this story. This is how good I was at lying. So while she's home keeping the kids at my house so Keith could be at the hospital with me, she sees that cat come in our backyard. It is not funny. I'm sorry, Mom. And starts chasing it up the hill with a baseball bat and goes to all of the restaurants and stores that our house butted into in the strip mall, telling them that my daughter is in the hospital fighting for her life because of this cat. Don't approach it. Don't feed. Called the pound like out there to get this cat. It was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. It was.
I'm not laughing, but I am because I get the insanity. I get the desperation.
Yeah.
And you're not going to convince us to tell you the truth. I don't care how busted we are. I'm still going to lie.
But and so I'm getting pumped with all of this stuff in the hospital, all these drugs in the hospital. Had this surgery. 12 days later, I get to go out and leave. And my mom's at my house. They send me home with a bottle of 90 Percocets. And
well, that ain't going to last long if you've been shooting fentanyl.
And it didn't. because I had them gone in 3 days.
I believe it.
Hid the pill bottle because I didn't want my mom to know. So I'm pretending like I'm going in there to take my medicine. And again, why would she allow it? It's not her fault, but she trusted me. I've got this because they thought it was the cat. I had been clean since 2013. So in her mind, it wasn't a second thought to let me have my medicine.
Well, here's the thing.
This was 2016, 17, and I had been clean that they knew of from 2013.
If they don't have a real understanding of what addiction looks like, like, it's not on them. And when we're not ready, we're not going to make sure that they know that, hey, look, this is one of those things that, no, I really can't ever do. Hey, if I have to have a major surgery, I'm going to need accountability. Right. I don't care if it's 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah.
Well, I hid the pill bottle underneath my mattress, and I was like, surely I won't have withdrawal because I hadn't been doing fentanyl for a couple of weeks. Even though I was this is my crazy thinking, but I've been in the hospital being pumped full of Dilaudid and all these things. They send me home with Percocets. I ate them all in 3 days. Well, I hadn't done fentanyl, so hopefully I'll be okay. Well, withdrawals, bam.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
so then I'm out the door running again. I got to go get some fentanyl. I went right back at it, and I got to do the fentanyl. And while my mom's at the house keeping the kids, and I don't even know where I was telling her I was going, but I had to do the meth too because I can't nod out and her be concerned.
Let me pause you just for a second on the heels of that story because I know we're going further. But you said something, and I wanted to pause you then, but I wanted you to. Your story is amazingly intriguing. I mean, it's really the depths. It's so. But for anybody listening, while you may not be here, oftentimes what we talk about in treatment, you may be going, "Wow, that." All of these are yets, right?
Yes.
You're not here yet. This is where this thing leads you. This is where it takes you. And so when you started running the drugs and making the money, you said, so everything was good now. And I wanted to pause there and just kind of, when you said everything was good now, I'm assuming, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that you're talking financially. But inside, how are you feeling better about yourself?
No,
or are
nothing
you still
was good
self-loathing?
internally for the for the me having to keep up appearances and to
that part
not
was
get
better.
Caught. That was great.
You were just out of the microscope of others, but you were still hating
I was
yourself.
Feeling horrible because I didn't like going to drive people around for drugs. I loved getting my drugs for free because it was helping my situation. It was helping all of my outwardly appearances and all of that. But internally, I felt even worse and worse and worse because then I finally learned what overdose was because I started hearing of all these people overdosing from this fentanyl. Never heard the word overdose a day in my life. And then
you've been using drugs for this long.
Yeah, never heard of it.
Yeah.
Because I was the one, like the people that I was around the most, they were the good people. I was, the ones where you're with your kids and your family and your husband. These other people, now you're not really hanging out with them because you just got to get in and get out, so it's not like a friendship, you know what I mean? So I was the drug addict. Everybody in my life that I spent quality time with and all of that,
we're normal.
We're normal. So I'm running all these drugs around and I'm starting to hear about overdose and I'm like, what? And then this girl.
I'm amazed it hasn't happened to you yet.
That's
honestly.
what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
No, we're getting there, but it hadn't at that point. So then this girl that, was the one who introduced me to all this that I had known for years and years and years was she that got me to running the drugs and stuff. She started like getting almost angry at me because I had the life that she used to have and didn't have anymore. And I started noticing a shift in the way she treated me. And she started like doing things to try to get me, I think, caught by Keith, you know what I mean? To get me caught because I could tell she was didn't have her husband, didn't have her son, had a pimp, which is the person that I was driving around to get the drug. And she is being abused and battered life and living in and out of hotels and and became angry that I'm pulling up, taking everybody where they need to go, and I'm going home to my house, and all of this stuff. And she had gotten beat up real bad at one point and wanted to come and stay at my house. And Keith was working out of town at the time, and so I would sneak her over there and let her come stay. So that was going on for a while. Still running the drugs, and letting her stay at my house. But then when he would have to come back in town, I would have to tell you got to get out because he's going to be here. He can't know that you're here. And she didn't want to leave one time and refused, wasn't going to leave. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now it was getting serious because now she's angry. So she started kind of dropping hints and to let him know that she had been, just certain things started happening that he started asking questions. He was like, is there anything you want to talk to me about? But he knew what a volatile, terrible person she was. So he was taking it with a grain of salt, wasn't really believing her because he knew, her ex-husband was telling him, don't listen to that. Kristy's not doing anything like that. She's just crazy. She's just angry, So I still had him fooled for a little bit. But then this one particular day, I would go run the drugs, go get my kids and go home, but I wouldn't sleep. I would pretend like I was asleep in the bed next to him, but I never said it was like this. So I'd been up for 4 days at that point, and my kids were at school. He was in town. He was in town that particular, because he would work out of town, but then be home a few weeks. And when he was home, he wouldn't have to work. He was getting paid for it. It was the way his job worked. But so he thinks I'm working. The kids are at school, and I had been up for 4 days, and I was running the drugs, and I was getting so tired, my body was shutting down.
Yeah.
And so the particular guy that I was running drugs for, he said, let so-and-so drive. You get over in the passenger, because he was in the back. He said, let this girl drive and you get in the passenger seat. And we were on our way to the hotel to do some distributing, and I was going to get what I needed to get and going home. And I was like, okay, because I had no choice. I could not function another second. And I remember they had pulled into Checkers and to get something to eat for them to eat before we pulled across the street on Dolphin Street to the hotel. And I'm literally can just barely hold I'm like, how am I even, we got to get to that hotel so I can get some meth in me, was what I was thinking at that point, to wake up, because I got to go home soon, within an hour. And I remember we are pulling out from the Checkers parking lot on Dolphin Street, and I can clearly see that there's a stoplight, and she gets ready to go. And I said, wait a minute, there's a stoplight, the light's red. And he's screaming, go, go. He's screaming for her to go, because we were all so shot out, for lack of a better term, at that point. I think I had more wits about me out of the three of us,
and
but I was the one that was, couldn't function anymore. I'm like, no, there's a light wait. And he's screaming, go, go. And he pops her in the back of the head. I remember that. And she guns it. And I remember turning and looking and just screaming, and then lights out. She crossed all 4 lanes of traffic. And when she got to she got through the median. When she got to the oncoming traffic, there was a utility truck pulling a trailer that hit us head on, T-boned us, but hit me. Shattered my face, and then knocked me this way, and I shattered the windshield with my face. My leg was broken. Neither one of them had a scratch on them, but I was knocked completely unconscious. I didn't know this at the time, but so the ambulance comes. So the utility truck hit us into several more. It was like a 4-car deal here. They kept hitting us into people. And when the vehicle came to a stop, there was no, they had to use equipment to get me out, because it was all on top of me. Everything was on top of me. And found out that he whisked her off the scene because she had warrants, and tried to get me out. That's what it was. He tried to get me out, and he saw somebody there that was like an off-duty EMT that tried to help him get me out. And then, but then he starts so they get me out, and I'm collapsed in the middle of Dolphin Street, and he begins to tell people that I was driving. But you could clearly tell that I was not driving, because where the driver's side was, where they were sitting, was fine, but my side. So I get whisked away in the ambulance. So him and this girl move on. They don't know if I'm alive or dead. They're gone. But I'm in the ambulance, and I guess I didn't have a lock on my cell phone, and the ambulance driver got my cell phone to try to call in case of emergency, and there was Keith's number, and she had to call him, and she couldn't get an IV on me. You could tell at this point, clearly I'm an IV drug user.
Because of the tracks are visible now.
And I thought I had him fooled. I thought everything was good, but I found out later when she called him that day, he was like, your wife has been in a severe wreck. It's not looking like you need to get to this hospital. And found out that the first thing that he said was it drug involved? Was it due to drugs? So he knew. He just didn't want to accept anything either. Long and short of it, I was in the hospital at USA for about a week. They couldn't do anything with my face. My nose all of this had been completely shattered into millions of pieces. There was nothing they could do till the swelling went down. So they sent me home. My leg was broken. My shoulder was broken. I went home in a wheelchair. to wait till the swelling went down. So I had like gauze holding everything up, for about 3 weeks to a month before they could do anything. And I'm just living like that in the recliner.
And I'm sure what went along with this was an ample supply of pain pills.
It did, but even worse than that, the jig was completely up for me at that point because he had to go look at the car. And there was so many needles in that car, so many baggies, so many loaded needles, bloody, like just the nastiest situation that you could ever imagine for him to walk up on. And so this was in 2019, and I'm literally sitting there recovering, and he knew, and I didn't know he knew, but he just needed that full confirmation when he saw everything at the wreck site, because while my recovery was a very long time. I'm still sitting there in recovering from this, not going back to the needle or anything yet, just taking what the hospital's giving me. And a sheriff shows up, serves me divorce papers. And when I tell you, I was blindsided because we never had
conversation.
Didn't see it coming. But I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I'll go to treatment again. I'll do treatment again. Please don't leave me. I'll do treatment. And he's like, you've got to get it together. So I convinced another secular treatment facility that I didn't need to go up to North Alabama to their inpatient. Just let me do outpatient. I'll do really good. And so
wow,
they did. And then I'm like, Dad, I'm going to do better. I'm going to get my life together. I got to have a way to go to treatment. I don't have a vehicle. And Keith was angry. You're going to do this on your own. If you want to save our marriage, you're going to do this on your own. I'm not helping you. You got to put your money where your mouth is, and you do this on your own.
Right.
And he was very ugly to me because he was angry. He was done at that point, but he really wasn't done. Like, he was holding on to hope that I was going to get it together.
If he was even still saying, you're going to have to do it.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm in the house there, and we're a married couple with our kids. And I'm like, Dad, how am I going to get there? He's not going to get me there. I don't have a way there. So my sweet dad, because his daughter is getting it together.
And she's asking for it now.
And she is asking for it. Nobody's forcing her. Let me go to a car lot and pick out.
Oh my goodness.
A $12,000 vehicle. And he sent a cashier's check and got me that vehicle with the title in my name to me so that I could get, because he was so proud of his girl, because she's going to get it this time. She's going to get it this time.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize a major podcast sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, your go-to option for decluttering and giving back. If you have a closet bursting at the seams or a garage that's seen better days, we've got the perfect solution for you.
That's right. America's Thrift Stores makes it easy to clear out the clutter and make a positive impact in your community. Whether you're cleaning out your wardrobe, downsizing your living space, or just looking to give back, America's Thrift Stores has you covered.
And here's the best part. You've got options. Schedule a hassle-free home pickup, drop off your items at one of their convenient donation sites, or swing by an America's Thrift Store to donate in person. No matter which way you choose, you're making a difference.
Absolutely. Every donation you make to America's Thrift Stores directly benefits charities in your area, such as the Home of Grace and other fantastic organizations dedicated to helping those in need.
For example, donations made to America's Thrift Stores in southern Mississippi help the Home of Grace provide support and assistance to individuals facing drug and alcohol addiction. Your contributions make a real impact on their mission to provide freedom from addiction through Christ-centered recovery. So not only are you decluttering your life, but you're also helping build a stronger and more supportive community.
It's truly a double blessing. So what are you waiting for? Clean out that closet, clear out that garage, and make a positive difference in your community by donating to America's Thrift Stores.
Visit America's Thrift Stores online to schedule a home pickup, locate a donation site near you, or get directions to one of their store locations.
America's Thrift Stores, where giving back never goes out of style.
I went to Bradford outpatient, and the pain pills had run out and the withdrawal set in. So I hit the door. Now I have a car again, but nobody, those people. I didn't go back to the people that I was running. That was not a thought in my head. I just want to just get something, because now I have this car title that I can go pawn and just get me just a little bit, just to try to figure things out, to get through this rehab, to not lose my husband, all of that. So it was just a quick fix. So I pawned the title immediately.
Gosh, even listening to that rationalization is just, oof.
Pawned the title immediately. Then I went and was getting the meth. Had to be meth and fentanyl, had to be meth. Well, then I overdosed. Finally had an overdose at a place where I had gone to get some of the drugs.
So clearly it wasn't just a little bit.
But that's what I was telling myself. Sure. But I had an overdose. Didn't know. I just remember like doing it and then waking up to all these people over me screaming and crying. And then I sat there and didn't realize the severity of what they were telling me. It didn't even resonate. And I was like, all right, I got to go. I got to get home. Like, got to go. Went home, didn't even want to think about it, deal with it. And the girl who I was using, was like, this is serious. Like, you almost died. We were about to the point we didn't think we were going to be able to save you. And so I went home, kept living my life. Didn't scare me. I mean, it scared me for a minute, but I didn't think about it. I put it out of my mind. I was really good at not thinking about things. To not
you don't have enough frame of mind.
I don't.
It's not, I
don't. And so I was going through this. I knew when they would drug test us at the outpatient, so I would make sure to be clean those. Like, I had all the drug tests figured out. I flew through that thing with flying colors, graduated, had the certificate, did all the counseling sessions. He was proud of me. Everybody was proud of me. We were going to be okay. I did it. She did it. Yay. We were going to be okay. That was in 2019. By 2020, the addiction's still spiraling. I've overdosed in my bathroom floor while he was at the store with the kids at Walmart, and him and the kids came home, couldn't get in the door, couldn't find me. He kicked the door in, and him and my children had to see me overdosed on the bathroom floor. And that was when he was done. He said, you gotta go. And so I had to go. I was like, what? I'm thinking I'm knotted out, but clearly I wasn't because it was a whole situation. He had me leave for a little bit, and I had to leave for a little while. But then my dad, sweet dad, was like angry at him. Why are you putting her out? And he's like, and he would tell them these things about these needles and all these things. And he's like, there's no way. He didn't want to accept it because I was doing so good. And he's like, I'm telling you. And he's like, I'm leaving her. I'm selling the house. And Dad's like, well, she doesn't have anywhere to go. You need to let her be there, So he decided to let me come back, but he's like, you can stay here. But we started sleeping in separate areas. He's like, I'm selling this house. And he kept telling me, and in my mind, I thought, okay, he's not done because I'm back. Here I am. I wasn't accepting that he was done because here I am back in this house. If he was done, I wouldn't be right here. Even though we're sleeping in separate rooms, we're still having family movie nights in the living room. We're still being sexually active here. And so he's not done. He just needs a minute. But he kept telling me, I love you, but I cannot let you hurt these kids anymore. Sure. We are leaving. He had even he even made me go to the attorney's office. I even signed the divorce papers that had to agree to everything he wanted because he said, if you don't agree, I'll take you to court and there's no way you won't get anything.
That's true.
Where these kids are concerned because I've got so much. He had pictures. I would have had no right. Like they wouldn't have given me anything.
Right.
So I had to, but I'm thinking, let me just sign it to keep him happy, but he's not going to go through with it. It's what my sick shot out mind was telling me. And he kept saying, Kristy, have you made any plans? Because the house had sold, but it was going through the big process, and he was looking for another house. He's like, you're not going with us. Like, you've got to get your life together on your own, and you will not have these kids in your life if you can't show me steps that you're trying to do that. And I was like, okay, he's taking me. I'm going to, because I helped him get the house sold. I was doing the paperwork at home while he was working, because by this point he had to stop working out of town and take a local job, huge pay cut because he couldn't trust me with our children. And I'm still thinking I'm going with him. And literally in October of 2020, it was like the last, he had bought a new house. He was taking loads. I was staying at the house with the kids, and he was taking loads and he's taking my stuff too. So I'm like, we're going. And then the last load came, and he was like, here you go. Here's your storage keys. All your stuff is in a storage unit that I got for you that your daughter, my oldest daughter, knew about and had helped him move all of my things into this unit. She was in her early 20s at this point.
Okay, yeah.
So she had helped him with all of this because she and I had been volatile for a while. She was over me, done with me, sick of me. So he was all on board with. She was on board with him.
Right.
They had become so close. She would side with him over me, so I was angry at her. Our relationship was awful. I blamed her because I blamed him. If you would have loved me different, if you would have treated me better, I wouldn't still be doing this.
Fault.
It was everybody else. Then I'm angry at her because she, COVID had hit and the kids were having to homeschool, and he wouldn't even let me be there. He made her come. She was living out of town at the time, had her come back to visit, to stay, to homeschool them because I wasn't trusted to homeschool my own children in the house, that sort of thing. It was just a whole terrible thing, but, and she would do what he wanted. So I'd be angry at her. Looking back, I am proud of her. She did exactly what she had to do to be the mother to those kids that I could not be. But anyway.
I love that. I was going to ask you that.
Oh, absolutely. So here you go. And he's like, where do you want me to take you? And I'm going, I don't know. So I call my dad and I'm like, because I think, were holding on to hope that he wasn't really done either. Mm-hmm. And when I was like, Dad, this is happening, he's like, well, fine. I guess we need to find you up. He wanted me to come to Texas to live with him and my mom, but guess what I said? I can't be that far away from my kids.
I believe it.
And I didn't go. So he said, find a hotel just for now, like damage control. So I picked one right in the heart of Tillman's Corner on N Road is what I did. Because in my mind, I was
not
like, well, I'm
area.
still
sick. Horrible.
Yeah, terrible.
Awful.
So I got that hotel room. I lived in that for 2 years, and I was still, a lady from the church was coming to get me to bring me to the church so that I could be there because him and the kids were still going there, and I was going. He was actually allowing me to come to his house to sit with the kids sometimes, to like spend time with them, and he was allowing me to talk to them, but he's like, you better not be high, you better not bring drugs in here. So I would hold it together and try to be even if I was withdrawing, something serious, I was trying my best because my world had fallen apart. Everything that I always had was no longer.
Sure.
And something, I forgot to mention this, that girl that you talked about, that girl that at this point I was no longer having anything to do with her, but this girl...
the one who taught you how to do
Yes, because she was in jail at this point. But she, this particular girl... said to me one time she was getting real angry because I wouldn't let her come stay at my house anymore. She said, the only reason that you're just like me. She said, the only reason you got what you got is because Keith takes care of you and you got your daddy. That's the only reason you're no better than me. And I was like, I am nothing like you. Like I had that mentality because I have my kids. I have a nice house. I have all these things. And I'll never forget the day she said that to me because I became every single thing that she was. Everything, because when he left me and did what he had to do to protect my children from me, my life fell apart. I had nothing to live for anymore, so I started dying. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I would do just enough to be able to get to see them, but then when the addiction got even worse because now I'm just so sick, and now my dad is like not giving me money anymore. He's paying for the hotel, but he is not giving me any more money. I don't have keys. Like I had everything and nothing overnight. So now he's paying for the hotel, but it's on me. So then it got real dark because now you do what you have to do to get the money to get the drugs.
Yes.
So life gets really dark.
Yeah.
And then you feel so much shame that you can't stay clean long enough to even get to go see them at church or go see them at his house for a little bit. So you just stop being available for that. But you're still talking to him on the phone and you're making excuses why you can't. And they're buying it. Your babies are buying it. And then my daughter would call to do her reading homework with me, and I would do reading. I'd do all the homework and stuff over the phone with her till I couldn't do that anymore because I couldn't keep it together because I was so depressed laying in a hotel room at night without my children, with nothing, that I thought, you know what, I can't do this anymore. My oldest daughter was she was about to get married, and this was the end of 2020. I knew she was getting married the next year at the beginning of 2021. But my dad paid for that hotel room up until the end of December, like right after Christmas. So I went through Christmas in that hotel, and he did let me go and see the kids and stay there Christmas Eve night that year to be with the kids Christmas morning because he didn't want to disrupt Christmas for them. But I couldn't get through it without being high. So he started not letting me come there. But he said, you can talk to them. This was at the end of December. And Dad was like, I can't pay for this hotel anymore. You need to come to Texas. They wanted me to come to Texas so bad. And I was like, can't be away from my kids. you're not even there for them now, but that was my mentality. I can't leave my babies, you know? So that's when I became homeless because there was no more hotel. So I literally had a storage unit, but I can't get to it because it's way across town. I'm in Tillman's Corner. I don't have a vehicle. I don't have anything because I lost that vehicle he bought me to that title loan. So now I have my feet and what little bit of stuff that I had in the hotel room with me, and I'm wandering Tillman's Corner, and I become homeless, and I'm living out of dumpsters, and I'm living in the woods, and I'm not bathing, and I'm, you know, just doing whatever I have to do to get the drugs that I have to have. And I end up getting arrested one night, and I go to jail it was a paraphernalia charge. I got busted with and when people say it wasn't mine, this really wasn't mine because I was an intravenous drug user, but someone handed me a pipe to hide from the police, and I did and got caught with it. So I went to jail for their pipe.
Really
but
not
whatever.
stuff.
It really wasn't mine, but either way. But when I was in jail, I got pulled down for a visit, and there were some federal agents sitting there. And the girl that, you know, I told you about that I had used to hang with, and her pimp that I drove around, it was apparently a huge drug. I knew we had a drug ring going on. We did it for years, but I didn't know we were being watched. The feds had been building a case from 2016, and I was still driving for that drug ring until I had my wreck, and you know, because I never picked that back up after that. So from 2016 to 19, like I'm driving. You know, the feds had been watching us, building a case, undercovers buying from all of this stuff. Well, I never sold because I had stopped selling the drug because now I'm driving. So that's not my part anymore. I'm driving. So I didn't touch the drugs anymore. But apparently, even if you're driving them and you don't touch them, you're on the hook just as much as everybody else. So these federal agents proceeded to tell me that they had come down on. And I knew the ring had gotten busted up because one of a few people, I'm seeing them on the news and it's coming down. I'm like, oh, that's when I found out there's this. They had been watching us, but I didn't really know the extent of. I'm like, well, I dodged that indictment because there was an indictment that had come out, and every single person that I knew that I hung out with that was involved in that's name was on the indictment except for mine. I'm like, ooh, how did that? That's God. Went on about my business, didn't think anything else about it. They're all in jail. She's in jail. I'm going on with my life, you know. I'm homeless now anyways. They're gone. I got to get it on the streets however I can get it. Well, he says, you're going to testify because everybody else took a plea deal, but that one guy, the one that was in my vehicle when I had my wreck and almost died, the one I drove the drugs for, he's the one that thought, you know, I didn't do that. I'm not that guy y'all say I can beat this, so I'm taking it to trial. His whole entire family turned on him, and he said, you're going to testify too. He said, because you're going to be that witness impact step. You're going to be the one that's the game changer for that jury because you're not like all those people, because they had been watching my house, seeing my husband in the yard with my children, the house that I came from, where my kids went to school, a private Christian school. They said, you're going to be what seals that deal for that jury. And I was like, and I said, I'm not doing it. And they said, you will, because see, if you don't, they had video footage and showed me where one time when we went to get some drugs, we took it back to this specific place. And I remember the night I shot the lady up with drugs. I had been doing that for money too at this point. And I shot her up with drugs. I leave, she's fine. But someone else went and shot her up later on and gave her a little too much, and she overdosed on the drugs that I had just delivered to her house. Even though I didn't touch them. This guy delivered them. I just drive you there. Yes, I shot you up with it earlier in the night, but what killed you, I wasn't there. I had nothing to do. But because my car was on video driving to bring the drugs back that killed her, he said, it is only a miracle that you are not going to be in prison for the rest of your life because she had such bad health that the coroner could have ruled 1 millimeter this way for overdose or health issues, and they ruled it health issues. Otherwise, you would be going on trial for murder, but you're not, but you're going to help us. And I was like, okay. Wow. So I had to agree to testify. So
pretty strong incentive.
Yeah, so the feds kept tabs on me after that for a while. And at this point, I had wandered. I had thumbed a ride out to Irvington. This is how I ended up to Irvington. I still living out of dumpsters, but I didn't want to live in Tillman's Corner in the dumpster situation. So I thumbed a ride with a guy, and I said, please just get me out of here because things were happening to me. I was, being beat up and all kind of terrible things out there. Survival of the fittest. I had made my way to Irvington. He said, I'm going to drop you off here. And he dropped me off at the Chevron in Irvington. And I ended up meeting a girl that worked there that lived across the street who was a drug addict. I always flocked to those sort of people. we're staying in her house, and I'm cleaning the house for she would give me drugs if I would clean her house, if I would, take care of things for her, and doing fentanyl, doing meth. And now I'm not having to do awful prostitute myself. Let's call it what it is. I'm not having to do all those things for my drugs because I'm living there and doing what she needs me to do to have my drugs. So now I can do more because I'm helping her more. And it just got so much worse. And then the house got raided one night and I was not there. I was the only one that wasn't there because I had to get out. I just took a walk. She thought that I was the one that got the house raided, and I wasn't. Why would I cut off my supply? It's what my mind, but she thought so some of the other people that, had met me through her were like, you can ride with us. And they took me to a terrible, dark, evil neighborhood in Irvington. And that's where I stayed for the last 2.5 years. I still had communication, with my family at this point, very sporadic. But it was at this point that I was like, I got to walk away because I am not there like they need me to be. I cannot get it together. I'm going to die a needle junkie. I have to walk away. And
so at this point, you're walking away to protect them.
To protect them. I said, they'll be okay over time, out of sight,
because you knew you were not willing or ready.
I was not going to be. I was going to die with a needle arm because by this point, I had more overdoses than I can count at this point. Of my, me, seen more overdoses. It was an everyday occurrence. I was either overdosing, somebody around me was overdosing. I knew I was going to die with a needle in my arm, so I didn't want them to have to go through that. So I walked away. I just walked away. I just walked away, never called them again. I said, my kids will be okay over time without this destructive me that they have. They're going to heal and be better off. So I walked away. I was on the news. People would tell me I didn't have a TV to watch. People would see me on the news and be like, you're that girl from... They would run missing person report after missing person report after missing person. Have you seen this woman? Collages of me and my kids, video from old video that they had of me, all this footage. And even before that my husband had done it a couple of times because even when we were still married, I was a runner. I would run off and disappear, here and there, and he would think something was wrong because he didn't know I was doing the things I was doing. He was literally concerned. Yeah. I had him thinking that somebody held me hostage one time, all kind of craziness I would tell him. But this time it was like, they're not hearing from me. They're really concerned. And eventually...
at 2 years passed. With no contact.
With no contact, almost 3 years. So they had finally stopped filing missing persons reports because I was presumed dead. Because there was no sightings of me, because I was out in Irvington so far away where nobody that knew them knew me. I had, all those people thinking my life was completely different from where I had just came from. They were getting, so now I'm manipulating them. Yeah. They're not knowing that I'm missing because they wouldn't want me around if I was all over the news for being missing out here because they don't want bad juju out here in their neighborhood, so I had to lie about that. Couldn't tell them about the feds watching me too, but the feds at that point didn't know where I was because I was supposed to keep communication with them. Well, I cut off communication with them, and I'm out here in Irvington. Well, eventually they found me, and I'm lucky that I didn't end up serving prison time for bailing out on that, but they gave me another chance, and so I started still using drugs and working with them, going to the depositions, testified in court, and the guy ended up getting 2 life sentences, but I had to testify, and it was the worst situation ever, but I stayed high. That wasn't even enough. You know what I mean? Yeah. The girl, when I did my witness impact statement, the girl whose family was the one that went after him for their daughter being overdosing in a hotel room and him leaving her there, and that girl that I knew that shot me up for the first time leaving her there, her family was like, thank you so much. And when they're thanking me and they're sobbing, hugging me, and I'm seeing this family, I'm like, that's my family. Like,
yeah,
that's my family right there. This is what my family is thinking and feeling, but I'm still here, But it's still, I wanted to reach out and I wanted to call them and I wanted to check on my kids, but I just couldn't do it. Something inside of me would not let me do it. The shame, the guilt, I just couldn't do it. So I'm dead in their mind. I'm completely dead in their mind because there is it.
They would have to be able to move on. They
had to take that route. I think they didn't want to give up hope, but they had become so hopeless,
Before we go any further, let's take a minute to address the man or the woman listening to today's episode and wishing for a better life. Or maybe addiction has completely overtaken a family member or a friend.
You are not alone. As you may know, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast is produced by the Home of Grace, a Christ-centered addiction recovery program in South Mississippi with over 60 years of experience.
The Home of Grace has residential programs ranging from 30 days to 12 months. With 2 separate campuses for men and women, they are fully staffed with caring individuals who want nothing more than to guide you to a life of recovery.
Services include individual and group counseling, marriage and family counseling, classes, workshops, GED, and workforce training, all grounded in biblical principles.
And because of donations from the community, the cost of the program is incredibly affordable.
Thousands of alumni from across the country can tell you there is no other program in the world quite like the Home of Grace.
If you want to start a new path to recovery, don't wait. Speak with an admission specialist today. Visit homeofgrace.org or call 833-55-GRACE to talk with someone.
That's 833-55-GRACE. Call the Home of Grace today. Would you say that, were you ever overtly, let me put it that way, were you ever overtly suicidal?
In the end, when I say in the end, like right before the Lord delivered me, like I had gotten to that point. I had gotten severely suicidal to the point I was going to go overdose myself. Like I had overdosed so much and I was getting angry that people were saving me. I was angry. I would come up swinging. Like I would come up wanting to fight everyone.
Just leave me.
Why didn't you let me die? Like getting hostile. I remember so angry. Why are you doing this? At this point, like I'm robbing people. I never would steal from people, even though you're stealing from your parents, manipulate. But in my mind, I didn't go in your purse. I didn't steal from there was no holes barred anymore. I'm stealing from people to get money. And we didn't have to, but we did it because the people I was running with did it. And that was their lifestyle. And they loved the lifestyle. So I'm ducking and dodging from the law, and all these things and living this terrible life. And, all these horrible things, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And I would still in the back of my mind, like cry out to the Lord. And I'm literally would read devotionals still. I had little devotions I carried around, and I would journal still when I would get by myself, with a whole needle in my arm, but I'm still trying to hang on to the promise, Lord, help me, and I would tell myself, I'm doing good because I'm reading my devotionals, and
I do know at some point we do get to I know that we've gone on a little bit, but I do want to get
I'm almost done.
Detox.
Yep, that's where we're at now.
Okay.
That's where we're at now. I couldn't do it anymore. I was going to die. I wanted to die. And I was like, something clicked in my head that you've overdosed all these times, but God's still saving you. So you're going to keep trying, and you're not going to even, you're so messed up, you can't even kill yourself the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, maybe I need to get some help. So I got on the phone and started reaching out and trying to borrow like another junkie's phone, and tried to start looking up places and call places, and no one would take me because I didn't have money. I didn't have insurance, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm going to kill myself. Like there was one more number to a detox place that I needed to call that I hadn't called. And I said, if they don't take me, I'm going to go prostitute myself that one more time. And I'm going to get those drugs and I'm going to kill myself, but I'm going to do it where I know I will be successful because nobody is going to be around me. I'm going to make sure it all lines up correctly. Yeah. And I called this place, and I remember the lady answering. She's like, I'm sorry, you don't have Medicaid. And I remember cursing her for everything she was worth. You don't care about people. Y'all don't care. It's all a money thing, and losing it on this lady. And she was like, oh, I said, I'm going to go kill myself. And I specifically said that to her. And she was like, oh, no, let me see what I can do. Just hang on one more night. Just trust me. I'm going to try everything I can. I said, trust you. I don't trust anybody. I don't know you. I ended up didn't have the energy because I was already starting to get sick to get up the dirt road to go prostitute myself one more time to get drugs. I was like, I'm just going to lay here and just hopefully she'll call. And then if not, I'm going to go out on a whim here. And I'm like, God, if this is from you, let this lady call me or my life's ending tomorrow. She called me the next day at 7:30 in the morning. She said, we have a vehicle ready. How soon can you be ready? I'm like, here, come get me. Went to detox, was going to get better and leave and go back to where I came from and showed them I'm clean and let's rock this life out. But she said, we're not taking you back where we got you, because they literally picked me up on a dirt road in the woods. We're not taking you back there. We're taking you to Home of Grace in 8 Mile. What you do from there is on you, but we aren't taking you back to where we got you.
Amen.
I went to Home of Grace. January the 22nd was when, March 22nd of 2023, I entered detox. On the 28th, I got to the Home of Grace, and Kathryn was the one I had to speak with to do my intake. And nobody knew that I had been missing. That was not something I was wanting to share, because in my mind, I'm going to go through this treatment on my own. I don't want anybody to know. When I complete this treatment, I will reach out to my family. But I want to get through this treatment, because they're not going to believe me that I can make it this time. Like, I got to show them something. I got there and I ended up, I don't remember who I told. I think it was one of the house moms. I was like, I'm missing or something.
No, it was me.
Was it you?
It was in my office.
I was so shot out in my mind.
Well, you were one day out of detox.
It was not good.
No, sober she was not. We didn't honestly know if you were going to make it to 90 days.
Yeah.
You were real spiraling. But no, that was me. And I won't ever forget that. You said, hey, I need you to call my parents. And
oh, okay.
We'll have people say, I need to make these phone calls. Well, okay, we'll get to that, And, but no, you said, no, you don't understand. My parents, I've been missing for over 2 years. I just want them to know I'm alive, and that it was so important, because you said, I want them to know, will you tell them I got myself into the detox and I got myself here. I did it on my own. Mm-hmm. And, so I called, you gave me your dad's number. You said, call him. And I left a voicemail, and that's kind of hard to do, And so he called me back, and I said, hey, his name is Larry. We became great friends. And he called back, and he said, hey, this is Larry Burden. I said, yes, sir. And he said, I saw that you're calling from the Home of Grace. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, I used to live around Mobile, and I'm familiar with the Home of Grace. Are you calling to tell me Kristy's there and she's alive? And I lost it. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, I got your message. And she came there and she put herself there. I said, yes, sir. And so later on that evening, he wanted time to tell your mom. And they called me. I was at home. I said, call me this evening. And so I talked to them at like 7 o'clock, and it ended up being like way past my bedtime, like 8:30. It was like the best talk. And I did come back and tell you that next day. But again, you were up and down.
It was very bad. I didn't think I was going to make it, but I knew we had a revival service at one of the chapels that, like, within the first couple of weeks. And I remember going, okay, God, I knew something had shifted where I wanted it. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm giving you everything, because before now I've let you control the parts I want you to control, but I've never let you control all of it. So take it all. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to live for you. And every single thing I do from this moment forward is going to be for you for the rest of my life. When I tell you, it felt like my clothes were falling off in that service. Mm-hmm. I walked out of that way a totally different person than when I came in. I still, I didn't think my mind was coming all the way back. I thought, when they say some don't come back, I still battled mentally with thinking I was crazy, thinking that I was, but I knew I wasn't going to give up. I knew that I stuck that scripture of the Lord will restore what the locust took from you. I banked on that, and I stood on that, and I was like, God has a plan for me. I didn't die. Here I am, and I'm going to keep doing this. I ended up getting to call my parents. We talked every phone call that I got every week the whole time I was there. My dad supported me, and I didn't ask for a single thing the whole time I was there. But my counselor would call and be like, talk to him and say, well, Kristy, because I was bound and determined I was going to get through it on my own. I didn't want anything from anybody. My parents had to call my oldest daughter to tell her I was alive. She wrote me, didn't want to speak to me on the phone, but wrote me the entire time I was there. And my younger two didn't know for a while, but nearing the end of my 90-day program, I had written my kids. I wrote them, but I was very protective. I would write, once I knew my ex-husband knew I was alive and where I was, I would write, get someone else to address the envelopes so that if my kids checked the mail, they wouldn't see my handwriting. Mm-hmm. But I would write to my ex-husband and say, thank you so much for finally having the courage to leave me and to protect them. Like, I thanked him for everything. Thank you for walking through fire for me, because I had blamed him for so long. It was not your fault. You did the best that you could. Thank you for being the man that you were to me. And thank you for finally having the strength to leave me, because if you would have never left me,
you'd be dead.
I would be dead today. You saved my life, and I thank you. And I would write when the kids' birthdays were coming up while I was on the program, I hope they have a wonderful, like I would always write about the kids, but to him, because I knew I couldn't write. Come to find out, he had a stirring in his heart, and the Lord was working on him, because he went and told my son that I was alive one day and started saving the letters and was saving them, and gave him a box one day of all the letters when it was nearing my graduation. And he said, your mom's about to graduate. She's been, and explained where I'd been, gave him all these letters so that my son could see I wrote every day. And he said, if you want to go to her graduation, you can go, and gave him the choice to go. So he's like, what? You know, so,
wow.
So my graduation day comes. My baby girl does not know. They were not ready to tell her yet, because she was only 10 at the time. And at my graduation, I got to see, and they have it on video, I got to see my parents, my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, and my oldest 2 kids were at the graduation. And I met my son-in-law for the first time, and they were there. And when my son, they passed the mic around to let everyone speak, and my parent, everybody's sobbing, and my parents, the hug, the embrace for the first time, we're all wailing like crazy people, because they thought I was dead. Like I was dead, and here I am. It's like the prodigal son has returned. They're holding me. It was so beautiful. When they're passing the mic around, everyone's talking, and they passed my son up, but he turned around and he grabbed it back, and he said, Mom, you always taught me about God. You were the one that prayed with us. We said our prayer. Like, you were my person. You were the one that I went to for everything. And when I lost you, you know, I knew I thought you were dead, but I remembered as a child all the things that you taught me about God, you know, and knew, because I still tried to keep up those appearances and make sure that my kids had the best life possible that I could give them.
Yeah.
He said, I knew that you were in heaven. He said, but I knew the only way I was ever going to see you again was if I went to heaven too. So he said, we had a revival at school, because he goes to a private Christian school, and he said, and I gave my life to the Lord. He said, because I knew I'm going to see my mom again now.
There was not one dry eye from that.
And so that was amazing, because it told me that even in the midst, that I was still trying as hard as I could, and I still wasn't a complete disaster. Even though I was, my kids still see the good in me.
You know, if I'm going to make a statement, sometimes I just make statements because I don't know how to put it into a question. Yes. You can tell me if it's right or wrong. But the reality is, we are complete disasters.
Oh, I was.
And it's not, but but the beauty in that statement is that in our pure disastrous selves, we see the purity of the love of God.
Oh,
right?
most definitely.
I mean, that's it's not because there's good in us that we see God. It's because his God, he is there in spite of the disasters that we are. That's what I'm hearing in your story. My head is spinning. So I want to ask you one other question, because, and then we need to kind of wrap this up. But no, please, are you kidding me? This could be our first.
That's what I was telling you. I was like, I don't understand how I'm going to.
This could be our first 3-parter. This is
great. Kristy is good.
Going through your story, what kind of echoes in my head is the process that your heart must have been going through of hardening, right? I mean, you have to get where you went, you have to kind of turn all that off.
I did.
Right, yeah. What has the reverse of that been like?
Let me just tell you, when I tell you that submitting to the Lord and giving him everything, I have more joy than I've ever had in my entire life. The peace, even when every day's not perfect, I still have joy every single day. I have a beautiful job. I'm a teacher at a local church. I teach 3K. I have the keys to the church. I'm the one who opens the church every morning. I was able to get my own vehicle in my own name on my own. And it's all been God, because I would have never been able to do those things before. I had a husband that did that. A dad. I've done all of this on my own. I'm able, and I get to pay tithe. We don't have but $20. We're not putting in the offering plate because we're going to Ruby too. Now it's like, here, Lord, take it. Tithes, offerings, I've made budgets, like things I have never were not important to me. I'm doing, and it feels so good to be able to do all these things on my own without the help of anyone else, fully relying on God for everything. I get to minister. I go around to all the treatment facilities and minister to women and bring the word and pray over these women that I can hopefully stop someone from getting to where I did the yet, my children, I'm restored to all 3 of them. I'm over there every weekend with them. I go to all the games, the ball. I don't miss anything. I drive wherever I have to drive to get to whatever I have to get to that they have going on to be there. And their dad has never told me I couldn't come see them. He has never not told me about a doctor's appointment or told me about an event. He has made sure that I get to be there for those kids. When I tell you I'm so blessed that my children never went in the system, or that this man who I caused him so much trauma and so much strife and so much disaster in his life is still to this day caring so much about those kids and loving those kids, that he is allowing me to be in their life the way that God has been so good to me. And I know this is why God never let me die. He saved me because I have a bigger purpose. I literally get to change lives today, little lives and big lives when I go and minister. And, my son is a senior this year. We just had his senior night, and one of the ladies that prayed over him while I was gone and really helped him because he had a hard time, went through a lot of anger and struggle because he's a mama's boy. She came up to me when we got to walk out. I got to escort him out with his dad for senior night. She said, she was sobbing, and she said, I prayed and prayed when you were gone. And when others gave up hope, I never gave up hope. She said, I prayed. Now, mind you, he was only in the 8th grade when I went missing. He's a senior now. She said, I prayed for this night when he was a senior that he would have his mama here to walk him out across this court. And she's like, God is so good. You're here. You're here. She said, I never gave up hope. And I'm like, wow. God has been so good to me. So I just want to tell people, like, I was the worst of the worst kind of person you could ever be, as you've heard. People don't have to get to that place. Like, let the Lord take control of your life. Give him everything, because I promise you, I was always one of those people that said, that won't ever happen for me. That's not going to happen for me. But they were surrendering. I wasn't. When I decided to surrender my entire being to the Lord, I became one of those people, and I am blessed always beyond measure. And it's it's mind-blowing still. I'm going, is this my life? But I wouldn't trade, and I wouldn't change anything, because I had to go through every trial and tribulation and every part that I went through to get where I am today. If I wouldn't have gone through the homelessness, through all of that, I'd be dead. I know that. I had to go through that for the Lord to be able to lift me up and me to get it this time. So
that's awesome.
That's it.
You're awesome.
I'm so sorry. That's why I was telling
Kristy,
you. There's a lot, and I don't know what to leave out, what to tell you.
Everything that was said is exactly what needed to be said.
Yeah.
You prayed. You stayed prayed up before you did this. I don't doubt that a bit.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Kristy,
everything I do is I go to the Lord and seek him in everything today. Everything.
One of the things I enjoy doing is kind of talking at the end, but that was a mic drop. I mean, you've really wrapped this thing up. The one thing I do want to speak to, if I can, just for a moment, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I am, for somebody who's listening to this and just heard your story, to hear you say on the tail end of that, God has been so good to me. Yes. Somebody out there doesn't understand that. And so what I want to say to you is this. She had 2 groups of people in her life, well, 3, but I'm going to talk about the 2 groups that loved her. She had a family that loved her, but didn't know how. And she had a God that loved her and knew exactly how. Oh, that's good. For those of you who are questioning, how does this describe a loving God? I'm going to tell you. Sometimes we love our loved ones to death. Yes. God knows, because he gave us choice. God, listen, I'm going to try not to get long-winded on this. This is one of my passions, though. Because people will say, if there's a loving God, why is the world going the way it is? Why is blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you the answer to that. The answer is love. What? What are you talking about, Paul? You cannot have love without choice. Yes. God had to give us the ability to choose in order to have love. His other option was to make us all robots, and that is completely absent of love. So choice is the ugly necessity to love. But here's the beautiful end of it right here that we see in Kristy. Sometimes it doesn't have a beautiful end, but choice is the seed to love. Families, you have a choice. You can love them to death or you can love them tough. God allowed Kristy, and I'm using her words, to go through what she went through because he knew that this is what it was going to take. God inhabits the beginning and the end. He already knows that. We don't know that. He knew that. This is what she had to go through. The only way to truly love Kristy was to let her experience what she was going to experience. Families, listen, I get it. 1, 2, 3 times we try. We try to do it for them. If they're not getting it, I know this is hard, and this is a whole counseling session, so I'm just going to do this briefly. I know this is easier said than done. Sometimes you have to let them fall. Sometimes we have to, it's the consequence that wakes up the addict. And by the way, we're all addicts. We're all addicted to sin of some sort. That's the flesh. We can't escape it. All the time, right? Fortunately, some people's consequence can just be a headache. Hey, I don't want to have a headache again, and they get better. Amen. Bless you. Sometimes it's getting to the point where I've lost everything and I'm suicidal and I'm angry at people who saved me. But we're one and the same. Love them enough to let them experience their consequences. I can't say enough about that. Kristy, your story and your end statement is so exemplary. I just love that, of the love of God and his never-ending pursuit of us. Thank you so much for being here and being, when you walked in the door, as everybody does, there's this, I don't know what to say, I'm nervous. Amen to exactly how this went down. Thank you so much for sharing that so openly.
Thank y'all for having me.
Amen. And guys, thanks for joining us once again on Jesus Loves Addicts. JesusLovesAddicts.com. Stop in, give us a comment. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.